Hi, it's Jordantine1, and this is part 1 of how to make my Lumigurumi Squirt the Turtle from the movies Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. So I have two different versions here. The one on the left is the one I'm going to be making in the tutorial, and you can see for the center of the flowers I used yellow bands. I have these larger buttons that I've used for the brown spots. And in the face, I use these 12mm animal eyes for the centers of the eyes. Now, my prototype here on the right, I used neon orange for the center of the flowers, and I did not use these animal eyes. I didn't have them at the time, so I made the eyes out of rubber bands, and I will explain how to do that within the tutorial if you don't have the eyes. And then for my spots, I used just these really small E-beads. So you can see the difference. I think either way it looks nice. And of course you can choose not to add the spots at all. So I'm super happy with the way that he turned out, and I hope that everyone else will be too. To make your squirt, you're going to need a hook of some sort, so I'll be using the Rainbow Loom metal hook, but you can use a crochet hook or whatever you have available. You're going to need something to stuff it with, so I'm going to be using polyfill. And you will see me use a twist tie to help me start my magic ring, at least at the beginning. And you can also use a Lumiloom from the makers of Rainbow Loom. So both of those tools are optional. They definitely are very helpful, especially if you're new to Lumigurumi. And I'm going to be using some stitch markers and clips, so either or maybe you want to use both. For the eyes in this tutorial, I'm using these 12mm animal eyes, and they're made by Darius. You can see they have the black pupils and then the brown iris. And for the spots, I'm using these, I think they're approximately 12mm brown buttons. And again, that's optional, or you can use beads or really anything you like. You could use rubber bands. And as far as my band counts, I tried to get an accurate count, so I should be pretty close. I used 50 white, 580 green, 273 brown, 57 black, 60 red, 26 yellow, and 211 tan. And all of the bands that I've used are Rainbow Loom brand. The brown and the tan colors both came out of the camouflage pack. I'm going to start by making the flippers, and the first 6 rows of all 4 flippers are the same. So what you're going to do is make 4 of these. It's going to start with a magic ring of 5, so for that I have 6 rubber bands. I'm going to use a twist tie to help me get my magic ring started, and if you had the Lumiloom, you would want to use the one that has the 5 fins. So I'm just going to place my twist tie right next to my hook. I'm going to take my first rubber band and I'm going to triple this. So it goes on, twist, back on, twist, back on. You'll have 3 loops. Pull this up, bend it in half. That's going to leave you with 5 bands. You're going to pull through one at a time. So through back on, you'll have 2 loops, one through the other. Push through from the front, go through those same 3 loops here. Pull through, this time you'll have 3 loops, one through the other 2. We're going to pull through our 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Now you can remove your twist tie, take your clip or stitch marker, place it on the band that's on your hook, and then if you spread these out, try and get them evenly around that circle. And that's going to be our stitch count of 5. So the stitch is this little V on the outside edge of your magic ring. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then number 5, or the last one, is always going to be on your hook. In row 2, we're doing an increase followed by 4 singles. So we're starting with an increase. You're going to go under your first stitch, push through under both loops from front to back, pull through your first, back on, you'll have your 3 loops, one through the other 2, and then since it's an increase, we are going back under that same stitch, pull through your second band, and loop. And then you're moving over to your second stitch, and then for the rest of the way we're just doing that 1 single crochet into each stitch. So you will notice the pattern starting to form where we are doing an increase in the first and then singles in all of the rest. So with your last band, it should be where your clip is. And then what you're going to do is remove that clip and place it on the band that's on your hook. You'll need 7 bands for row 3, and it's an increase with 5 singles. So again, it's an increase to start. So there's 1, back through for the second, and then again we have singles for the rest. Again, the last one's always going to be where your clip is. Row 4 is an increase with 6 singles. So we have our increase, and you should notice if you look to the side that all of your increases should be lining up with one another. It's going to make the flipper angle out on that one side. And then we have our 6 singles. Last one. In row 5, it's an increase with 7 singles. So you have your increase. And by now you should really notice it's starting to angle out where the increases are. And then the 7 singles here. We have one more row that's going to follow this same pattern. And then we're going to do something that's a little different for the front and the back. In row 6, it's an increase followed by 8 singles. So we have that increase that's lining up with all the previous. And then the 8 singles. So this is the last row that is going to be the same for all 4 of the flippers. And I will add the time to go back to for you to follow along again to make the other 3. And then, as I said, I'll show you how to finish the back flippers and then how to finish the front. In rows 7 and 8 of the back flippers, you're going to need 10 bands, and you're just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch. So you're going to do this for 2 of the flippers, and I'm just going to go ahead and let you do those on your own since it's pretty straightforward. So you can pause and do that now, and then I will show you how to finish the front flippers. In row 7 of the front flippers, we're doing 4, increase 5. So under your first stitch, we have a single. That's where we had previously been doing increases. We're doing a count of 4 singles. So that's 2, 3, 4. And then in that 5th stitch, we're doing an increase. So we're actually increasing on the opposite side as before. We're going to try and get this bend in here. And then that's going to leave you with 5 singles. In row 8, we have 4 increase, 4 decrease. So we're doing our 4 singles. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have our increase. It's going to line up where we did our previous increase. Then we have 4 singles. So there's 1, 2, 3. Let me just get my clip out of here. And here's 4. Then that should leave you with 2 stitches. Let me just take my clip off. And we're doing a decrease in the last 2 stitches. So I'm just going to spread that around so you can see it a little better. So what we're going to do is skip the first stitch just for a second. We're working in just the outer loops. So I'm going to that next stitch over. I'm going to grab the outer loop, pull slightly back, and then I'm going to push through that first outer loop that we had skipped. And if you look on your hook, it looks like the bands make an X. What you're going to do is just pull straight through, back on, and then 1 through the other 2. And then just add your clip right back. In row 9, we're doing 8 singles, a decrease, and then 1. So just make sure when you go into your first stitch that you're going into an empty stitch. We had done a decrease, and it's right here sort of on the bend. So just make sure you're going into the correct empty stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're coming around the bend here. 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we're doing a decrease. So it's the next 2 stitches going together. Again, skip the first, go to the outer loop of the second, pull back, push through the outer loop of the first, and then that should leave you with 1 stitch here. That's where the clip was, and that's just a regular single. In row 10, we have 7 singles, a decrease, and 1. So we're doing our 7 to start. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Again, we're doing a decrease in the next 2 stitches. Skip the first, outer loop, it's kind of along the bend here. Pull back, push through the first outer loop. Again, one left where your clip is. So we're just basically decreasing so this angles down for us. In row 11, we have 6 singles, a decrease, and 1. So we have just 6 singles this time. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, decrease. Again, it's kind of along the bend here, so just be careful. And then finally 1 single. So this is our very last row of the front flipper. So you need to go back and finish those last rows of your second front flipper. And once again, I will add the time if you want to follow along with the steps again. Next, I'll show you how to do the eyes. And if you're going to use all rubber bands, the way that I did with this turtle, you would use black bands for the pupil, brown for the iris, and then white for the outside. And the way I'm going to show it in this tutorial is I'm going to be using these safety eyes for the middle. Therefore, the remaining part of the eye is going to be all white. So we're going to start by making a magic ring of 4. So if you're using all rubber bands, you would use black, but I'm going to do the white. So I need to treble my first band, and I'm not going to use the twist tie or anything. I'll just use the plain hook. So twist, back on, twist, back on. So you have your 3 loops. You're going to take your second band, it's going to pull through those 3 loops, back on your hook. You'll have the 2 loops, one pulls through the other. And then from front to back, you're going to push through those 3 loops. Make sure you get through all 3. Pull through your second band. Again, straight through. Here's band number 3. And then one more time for band number 4. So again, if you're using just rubber bands, this would be all black. So I just had laid that out there just to show you the example. We're not actually going to be using those in my version here. So you want to spread these around the circle as best as you can. I know it's a small magic ring. And let me just take a clip so I know that was the end of that row. And then in the next part, we're going to be doing an increase in all 4 of the stitches. So you would be using brown if you're using all rubber bands. And again, I'm just using the white. So let me just show you though, you will have to do a slip stitch since you're changing color if you're doing the brown. So just pretend like this is black, what I already did, if you're going to push through. So what you would do is pull through the stitch, but also pull through the band on your hook, so you're just left with the 2 ends of that same color, and one pulls through the other. So that's what you would do if you were changing color, but since I am making mine all white, I don't need to do a slip stitch. So I'm just doing an increase in every stitch, so that's 2 bands in each. So there's 1, back through the same for my second, and then same for all of the stitches. It's my second increase, third, and then where my clip is here is my last increase. Then I'll move my clip. So now if you're doing the colors, you should have black in the middle, brown on the outside, or with the safety eyes, you're just following me with a white. And now at the end here, this is going to be the same regardless of which method you're choosing. Let me just push these up. So we're going to do an increase in the first 6 stitches. So you're actually going to have more than 6 stitches here, but we're only doing 6. So it still looks like it's a little bit stretched out here just because we have such a small magic ring. Let me just sort of spread these around. So here's my first increase. Oh, and again, I should say, if you are switching from brown to now white, you would do a slip stitch again. There's the second. Third. Fourth. Fifth. And here's my last one. So again, it's not going back to the start. You're going to actually have 2 more stitches that you're going to leave empty. So let me just take this clip and move it to the band that's on my hook. And this part that's going to stay a little bit flatter, where we didn't go all the way around, that's going to be towards the inside of the face. And now with my safety eye, I'm just going to go right through the center, through the magic ring. And now you're going to have to make a second eye, so I will add the time to go back to if you want to follow along with the steps again. The head is going to begin with a magic ring of 6, so I have my 7 green bands. So I'm going to triple my first, and if you want to use that twist tie or loomy loom, you certainly can. I'm going to pull through my first band, through those 3 loops, back on, pushing through again, bring through my second, there's number 3, 4, 5, and here's number 6, and add my clip. In row 2, we're doing an increase in every stitch. So this is pretty easy here. We're doing the 2 in each. If you hear any noise in the background, it's just my air conditioner. Keeps kicking on and off. Here's my last set. Let me just take that clip out. In row 3, we're increasing to 16 bands, so we're doing an increase in every 3rd stitch. So we're doing 2 single crochets to start, So there's one in the first stitch, one in the second, and then that increase in the third. We're just going to continue to repeat that. So we kind of skipped an increase step. Typically you do one single crochet and then an increase, and then do your 2 single crochets and an increase. But for this pattern I decided to go right to the 2 singles and the increase. And then we have one final set here. In row 4, we're going to do the pattern of 3 singles followed by an increase, and we are going to start to attach the eyes. That's going to be in stitches 1 through 4 and 11 through 14. So I'm going to go into my first stitch, and then right away I'm going to pick up the eye. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working with it so that the inside is facing you. And we're going to count up. You can see where the rubber band is here in this last stitch where the loose band is. You're going to go to the next empty stitch and you're going to count in a counterclockwise direction. You're going to go to the second one. So not this one, but the next one over. And you want to have, as I said, the inside facing you. Push through. So what you're going to do is pull through the 2 bands for the eye, 2 loops, the 2 loops in the stitch, get the other end back on your hook. You'll have 3 bands, 1 pulls through the other 2. And then you're going to go into the second stitch. Now we're going to go to the next stitch over on the eye, and we're also going to grab this loose band and connect it. Just take off my clip. So here's my second green band. I'm pulling through the loose band, the eye stitch, the head stitch, back on, 3 loops, 1 through the other 2. Moving to the next stitch around here on the head. Now the band that we had just connected, that's going to count as our next stitch on the eye, so go under that. Pull through the 2 stitches, back on, and through the other 2. And I'm moving to my 4th stitch. Now this is going to get the increase. Just for the very first band, we're going to go through the eye, just like we had been doing. Whoops, I lost it there. So pull through both stitches, back on, through the other 2, and now go through that same stitch only on the head, and that's going to be that increase. So hopefully everybody got that. Now we're doing 3 singles. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then my increase. And then that's going to move us over to the opposite side of the head. And then here's where we're going to do this pattern again with the other eye. So go through the stitch, pick up the eye. Again, you want the flat part to be facing towards the inside. You're going to count up to 2 stitches, so you can see we're through this stitch. So 1, 2, that's where we're going to push through. Next stitch on the head, next stitch on the eye, and now grab the loose band as well. Pull through that loose band and the 2 stitches. Next one over on the head, and now the band we just connected on the eye is our next stitch. And then one more. This is going to be the increase. So the first one is going through both sets of stitches, and then back through the same stitch, only on the head for the increase. And then the pattern one more time. So we have the 3 singles. And then where your clip is, you're going to do the increase. It's kind of tight because that eye's a little bit in the way. In row 5, we're going to use 24 bands, so we're doing 4 increases, but the spacing is going to be just a little bit different on this row. So I have a button, and that's just indicating that we are going to attach the eye on the 23rd stitch. So we're starting with 4 single crochets. Now we're not attaching the eye just yet, so I would suggest just holding it down out of the way. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to do an increase in the 5th stitch. And then we're going to do 2 single crochets, and then we have another increase, and then we're going to do 7 singles. So there's 1, 2, 3. You may find that some of the stitches feel a little bit tighter. 4, just because of being pulled through the eye bands as well. That was 5, 6, and number 7. And then that should bring you around to the top here. We're doing 2 increases in a row. So that's the first increase. There's the second increase. We have a single and another single, but you can see this is the 23rd stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the next open stitch of the eye. And then I'm down here to my last one. That's only going through the head for the 24th. Row 6 is 1 single crochet into each stitch, and we're attaching the eyes on stitches 3, 11, 15, and 22. So we have stitch number 1, two. On the third, we're going to find the next open stitch from the eye on the bottom side here. Pull through both sets of stitches. And now we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then here stitch 11. Again, next open stitch, and now we have stitch 12, 13, 14, and now in stitch 15, go to your next open stitch in the eye, and then we have 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and here's stitch 22. I'm going to connect, and finally 24. In row 7, we're going to attach on stitches 2, 10, 14, and 22. So here's stitch number 1, and then in stitch 2, we're also going through the eye, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then in stitch 10 is our next connection. Whoops, I lost it there. And now we have stitch 11, 12, 13, and now stitch 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then here's stitch 22. That leaves us with 2 more. In row 8, we're going to connect it to 6 places. So we have it in stitches 2, 10, 14, and then 22 through 24. So the first one is just in the green, and it actually is going to look like it lines up, the white lines up better with stitch 1, but we actually need to stretch it a little bit because we need to leave enough green to finish out the white in the next row. So stitch 2, you're going to have to do a little bit of a back here to go through the white for the eye. And then we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then in number 10 we're connecting, and that should line up pretty well for you. And then we have 11, 12, and now once again it looks like 13 would line up better with a white, but we're not going to connect it in 13. We're doing it in 14, so again it's a little bit of a longer stretch to make it under the white. And then we have 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and now the last 3 are going to connect. So we have 1, 2, let me just move that clip so you can see better, and this is number 3. In row 9, we're attaching in stitches 1 and then 10 through 13. So here's number 1. You should have 1 stitch left of the white. It's kind of a little hard to get under since it's closed off. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then in stitch 10, that's our first connection, then 11, 12, and then number 13, again it's kind of a little bit tight. I'm going to get that last piece of the eye closed off, and then it's just 1 in each back to the start. So obviously that's our last row of attaching the eyes because there's no more stitches left. So hopefully everybody got that okay. Now it's a little bit difficult, but I think it's more difficult to try and attach them later. I think it's easier to do within the rows. Here's the last 3. Now before I build out the head any further, I'm going to add the mouth. So I have 2 black bands and 1 C-clip. So you should have your loose band here as it's facing you over to the right. The part where we did the 2 increases in a row, that's going to be the top of the head. And so what I'm going to do is just find where I think I want the mouth. And I'm just going to push out, take a black band, pull through to the inside, and then I'm going to leave that on my hook, and I'm just going to go 2 spaces over, pull through the other side. I have the 2 black bands on my hook. I'm going to pull through both loops on my hook, get the other end back on, and now what I'm going to do is take my C-clip and I'm going to attach the 2 bands around that. And the reason I'm doing it that way is it's going to give a lot more slack to the mouth, so I'm going to be able to pull this out and it's going to be a lot looser. You could make a slip knot, but that's going to draw the bands really tight against the face. So this way I think it looks a little bit more of a happy smile. In row 10 you'll need 24 bands. We're doing just 1 single crochet into each stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and let you do that row on your own, so you can just pause and I'll see you back here in a minute. In row 11 we're going to start to do some decreases. So the pattern is 4 singles followed by a decrease. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then stitches 5 and 6 are going together. So if you remember how we did our decreases, we're skipping the first, outer loop of the second, pull back straight through the first outer loop, and then that's just going to continue again. So we're just going to gradually start to narrow here. So that was 4. Here's our second decrease. Oops, I went through 1 there. Our next 4. And then we have our third decrease. And then 1 more time. Let me just take out my clip. In row 12, it's 1 single crochet in each, so it's a total of 20 bands. Again, I'm going to let you do this row on your own, so you can pause and I will see you shortly. In row 13, you'll need 16 bands, and this time we're doing 3 singles followed by a decrease. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have our first decrease. Again, we're just going to continue. So there's 3, and then the decrease. So we're almost done the head here. We have just a few more rows. It's my third decrease. And then one more set. And a final decrease. In row 14, you'll need 16 bands. Again, it's one in each, so you can pause and do that now. Now, before I do my last row to close this off even further, I'm going to attach my buttons for my brown spots. So this part is optional. You can leave them just plain green, or you can use buttons, beads, whatever you think, rubber bands. And I'm just going to randomly place them. I have 5. So I'm going to come up through one of the holes, take 1/2 here. You can see I've put the rubber band through 2 of the holes in the buttons. So I'm just going to pull through one side, come right out the next hole, grab the other side, pull that through to the inside. I'll have the 2 loops, and one will pull through the other. So then I just need to come out a little bit over wherever I want the next one to be. Pull through one side, and I'm going to pull through the other one on my hook too, just because I don't want it to be stretched too tightly. And then I'll come up the next hole over, grab the other side, pull down through, and do one through the other. And then maybe I'll come up here, and if you feel like you want to do one farther over and it feels like there's not enough slack in the band, what you can do is you can just tie this off. So you may need some additional green bands here and make a nice and tight slip knot. That way, if you want them farther apart, it's not going to pull this too tightly. If you try and connect every one, you might not like the look of it. So anyway, that's just how you would connect the spots. Let me just come over here. Again, pull half of it down, go up the next opening, pull the other half down, and then do one through the other. And either just go to your next spot, or again, if you feel like where you want to go is too far away, what you would do is you can just use an additional band and make a nice and tight slip knot to tie it off. So you would just attach as many as you think you like. Now I'm also going to add my stuffing before I close this off any further. So I like to take smaller pieces at a time, and it should be pretty easy to fill because it's just one big open area. So you want to pack it firmly but not so full that it's showing in between your stitches. In row 15 you'll need 12 bands, and the pattern is 2 singles followed by a decrease. So now that you've added your stuffing, you just have to be careful not to get it in your stitches. So that's 2 singles, and then our first decrease. And then just keep repeating. Next 2 go together for our decrease. And this is our last row of the head. Here's my decrease. Here's the last set of the pattern. And our very last decrease. Now this is the end of part 1, and I will add the link for you to follow to continue to part 2 to finish making the shell and then to put all of the pieces together. I hope that everyone loves their new Squirt the Turtles as much as I do. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook. You can post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way you can get updated when I have new tutorials available. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to post your pictures and comments there too. And don't forget to tag me if you do post any pictures on Instagram. Thanks for watching!